For sale. Substantial period inn, heart of Cornwall village, part of the Rhine Peninsula. Successfully run business for past 8 years by one hands-on proprietor. Good reputation for food and hospitality. Business would ideally suit couple with catering experience.
Now, I'm not in the market for buying a pub, but as often happens in this series, we can scent yet another story about what some people call irresponsible capitalism. Russell, tell me briefly, why are you trying to sell up?
Well, basically, we're hoping to be able to sell before we're forced out. Okay. I don't want to go, but the way I'm being pushed, or the pressures are being brought to bear because of the onerous financial conditions I have to work to under Punch, I'm possibly going to be pushed rather than walking out of my own volition. And if I do that, I lose everything.
Russell is what's known as a Tide pub lessee. He holds the lease on a pub owned by Punch Taverns, one of Britain's biggest pub companies. Under the Tide model, Russell has to buy beer, cider and soft drinks from Punch, while he pays a rent which is supposedly below market rate.
The first 2 or 3 years weren't too bad because volumes were such then that we were able to pay our way. But when the economy really took a downturn, things got quite sticky with Punch.
In 2008, in the midst of the credit crunch, Russell's rent was put up by over 8%. In 2010 and 2011, he successfully fought for a temporary drop.
It's not restored you an easy life or anything approaching it?
No, not at all, because the prices I pay for my beer, they have it both ways. I pay 40 to 50% more for my draft stock from Punch than I would if I could just go and buy it off the shelf from Booker's. I took the pub on, expecting to be front of house. So I thought I was going to be the landlord behind the bar, pulling pints, being nice to people, enjoying providing a service, end of story. Now, I probably do somewhere in excess of 95 hours a week.
You work 95 hours a week?
Yeah, I do about 15, 16 hours a day.
For all that work, Russell made a profit of £3,000 last year, which highlights a set of problems common to people who run Tide pubs. 3 years ago, research commissioned by the House of Commons Business Committee found that 67% of the Tide publicans who were surveyed earned less than £15,000 a year.
We work for nothing, in effect. I'm pretty good at managing money. I've done it all my working life. But I don't so much manage money in my role now as a Tide lessee. I manage thin air. Right, okay. We've just collected a couple of bulbs for the pub. I had £10 to spend, and I had to decide whether I was going to buy the bulbs or put some petrol in the van to get me to Lloyd's Bank to pay my direct debit today. Thursday is the day that I have to pay every week to Punch Taverns for my rent and for my stock. Today is one of those instances where I don't have enough money to pay in, so I've spoken to my business manager at Lloyd's Bank this morning, who's very kindly agreed to cover me until I do have the money to pay in. And Punch have been quite clear that if I can't make my payment, they will expect me to bring everything up to date, everything that I owe for the last 3 weeks, and if I don't, then the bailiffs will come in.
While we're in Millbrook, one of Russell's punters tells us about Jenny Brazier, who used to run the other Punch pub in the village.
When we took over the pub, 2001, we did various maintenance to the pub, and because of the costs that we put into the pub, our rent went up.
So hold on a minute, you took a punt, you took a risk?
Yeah, I sunk everything. Everything.
And then they said to you, we reckon because of this the rent should go up?
Yeah, thank you very much. You've made our building nice, and we're going to charge you for it. Financially, we came out with nothing. In fact, I went bankrupt.
You declared yourself bankrupt?
Yeah, I did. Which was another horrendous thing, but I have to say, when I woke up and we decided to go, I felt reborn.
Do you miss it?
Yes. When we first started, and you could sit down on a night and create people's laughter, to be part of the community, it was lovely. And to have that taken away by Punch was very sad.
See, there's a lot of talk about the decline of the British pub and all that, right? And the two cliches are, people talk about the smoking ban and they talk about cheap booze in supermarkets. If we then throw in the question of pub companies, of those three, what was it that in the end pushed you out?
Pub companies.
It's early doors now, so time for a bit of background. Punch own around an eighth of the pubs in Britain. During the boom years that ended in 2008, they expanded rapidly and ended up mired in debt. Their share price dropped by around 95%. And as far as people like Russell can see it, their current business model really depends on clawing back that money from people like him. Now, the government's approach to all this essentially boils down to a system of self-regulation. But there was a vote in Parliament in January in favour of the establishment of an independent review to look at the relationship between publicans and pubcos, and it was meant to report in the autumn. What happened at the end of February was that the government ratted on that deal and left the status quo in place. And that leaves people like Russell in the midst of what they see as a very imbalanced relationship between the people who run pubs like this and their owners.
Russell shows us the monitoring system which pubcos like Punch use to keep tabs on their leaseholders.
This is the brew lines box. These are all the lines running into the box, and they come from all the barrels. So each barrel has got its own dedicated line, and the purpose of that is, or one of the purposes is, if I should buy out, i.e. buy out of tie, then when I put the new barrel on, it'll register down at Punch's office or wherever Brewline stores the information that a barrel has been sold that hasn't been purchased.
What this is a computerised system via which Punch monitors every drop of beer and cider that you sell.
Yes.
Punch told us they have
moved a long way in the last 3 years.
They say they offer flexibility on billing and marketing support and can sell their publicans drinks at market prices, but that
Rent would be higher in that circumstance.
their benchmark minimum profit expectation for a pub is £20,000, though they could not say how many Punch pubs achieve this. A profit of £3,000, they told us, is
Not acceptable to a publican or the company.
and problems with the weekly payment schedule are likely to be
A symptom rather than a cause.
of a pub's problems.
Well, this does not look like any kind of struggling business. This is the dining area, which is filling up. The bar's fairly packed. It's only Thursday, and tonight's darts match hasn't even started. Can we do a quick ad hoc pub quiz? Okay, have you heard of Punch Taverns?
I have heard the name. That's as far as it goes.
Say a pint of bitter that I've just bought is about $3.30, right? How much do you reckon Russell gets?
Oh, peanuts.
You should get £2.20.
Well, he gets pretty much under half that. How many hours a week do you think he works?
Maybe 50, 60.
12 hours a day.
No, more.
80? I'll tell you the actual answer. 95.
That's a lot. He's always got a smile on his face.
For as long as there are punters in the pub, Russell maintains the appearance of a genial, successful landlord. But once they've gone home, the reality of his predicament once again hits home.
I sometimes wonder how much more can I take? But the minute, if you like, I step in front of the crowd, then something kicks in and I like the trade and I get on with it.
But if you work at your hourly rate,
it's probably about £1 an hour.
Why do you do it? What keeps you going?
Well, there are two answers to that. I can't afford to go anywhere. I put my life savings and everything into it. So if I walk away, I lose it all. And I really like the business. If I could wave a magic wand, I would like to buy a free house where I can actually make enough money to live on and support myself to look after my future with. I would never, ever, ever take on another Tide pub as a single operator.